we look at the process, the actual annual planning process for maintenance. Some of the sources we currently have for creating your maintenance plans, and then basically how we can plan per fiscal year or down to the fiscal month level. The process of executing the plan, how we can track that plan. Then we will look at a bit of extending the plan matrix, which is some of the new features that we will be working on. And then the Agile Assets Summit or dashboard tool, and how we can use that to basically track and monitor our plans. Okay, so this session is interactive, so feel free to stop me and ask questions if you have any. The whole goal is to review our maintenance year, but we're going to look at what we currently have, what is going to be coming, the features that are in the works, and if you have anything that you would like to see, feel free to stop me and let me know that. We do have some work coming up with Ohio shortly. They do have a change order in process, so some of the features we will be working on in the plan matrix will be done in the very near term. Okay, so why are we doing a lot of planning? Of course, there are federal requirements for maintenance planning, one of these being MAP 21. Of course, the way asset management is defined not only looks at the operation of your assets, but also the maintenance of these and how these can be improved. As part of that, there needs to be a structured sequence of maintenance and preservation, as well as the normal repair and rehab of your assets. And the goal of all of this is really to keep your assets in a state of good repair over the entire life cycle at the minimum practical cost. So we not only have to show that we're maintaining these, but we're also doing it on a cost-effective basis. Okay, so this is what our planning process looks like. Looking at it a little closer, there are basically several sources that we can start building the maintenance plan from, and these include inventory-based, and I will go into each of these in a little bit more detail, desired level of service, scenario analysis, copying last year's plan, so I can take last year's plan and start modifying that. I can look at the actual work which was accomplished last year, and I can tweak that as well. And I can also look at my needs, so basically work requests, requests from the public that have come out. I can also use these to build my plan. So once I have all the different plan items set up, I can basically take these and decide whether I'm going to plan at an asset level, so down to a specific road or down to a specific bridge, or whether I'm just going to plan by a planning unit, an administrative unit. So based on that decision, I would set up my plan items. And then the next thing I'm going to decide is whether I have the in-house resources, that is the employees, the equipment, and the material to actually execute that plan, or if I'm going to actually contract that work. If I'm going to be doing the work in-house, I would then use my performance guidelines to determine what amount of resources I would need to actually execute that plan. So once I have done that, I would finalize my annual plan, and I can use that to generate the labor, the equipment, and the material budgets that I would be required to actually execute the plan. And then I can go ahead and start scheduling work off of that plan. And of course, part of that is going to be the actual monitoring of the work as it is performed. If I'm not able to perform work in the particular month in which it was planned, I can, of course, reset my plan to move that work to the next month. And really, the goal at the end of the year is to execute all the work on the plan, but of course, there will be emergencies. You will have bad snow seasons and so on. So that plan needs to be somewhat flexible. Okay, so one of the key components needed for planning in the Agile Asset system would be performance guidelines. And these can be called different things: activity standards, quantity guidelines. But really, these are used for 4 things. They're used for planning work. They provide a goal of what quantity of work you can accomplish in a set period. So they really have basically your production targets for each day. How much work can I accomplish? They're also used for budgeting work. You have the unit costs of basically producing each unit of an activity. And they also let you know what resources, so what my labor crew will need to look like to produce a unit of work, how much material I will need, and my equipment needed. They can also be used when I'm ready to schedule the work, so I can know what my crew makeup needs to look like, what materials I need to have on hand before I start actually performing that work. And then they also provide a baseline for comparing as I actually execute that plan and perform work. I can compare my actual costs to that quantity guide, to that performance standard, to see how effectively I am executing the work. So it's important that your performance guidelines be kept up to date. They should the actual production rates and the unit costs you use should reflect what is actually happening out on ground. And for that reason, your performance guidelines can be managed at the state level, where you have one performance guideline for the entire state, or you can override these at the district or the admin unit level to reflect local conditions. So for instance, if I have a rural community which has very long haul distances, my performance guidelines really should reflect that, so that I basically have enough equipment at that level when I'm actually planning the work. Now, your performance guidelines may also be managed at a detail level. I can have the specific class codes for labor, equipment, and material that are being used to execute the work. Or I can manage them at a unit cost level, where we're basically just saying that we need to perform a unit of work. Here's going to be the unit cost for labor, equipment, and material. So really the idea is you can start off at the unit cost level, or you can, over the course of several years, look at what those unit costs are. But the goal is really to drive towards actually having the detail, the specific labor, equipment, and material makeup, because that will give you better data when you're actually planning. Okay, you also have the ability to use the historical work accomplishments to help derive your unit costs. Okay, so basically this is a look at our performance guidelines window. Of course, you have the activities up here in this main pane, and then you have the a labor pane, in which you can put the detailed breakup of your crew by class code, how many of each class code is required, and what the unit cost is, your equipment, material, and then you can have an activity calendar which shows in what months, what percentage of your work is typically performed in each month. And that basically allows you to do some leveling and distribution in your work plan using the performance guidelines. Okay, so this is the historical cost window. And basically this allows you to, based on the cost factors you input here, to look at multiple years of actual work accomplishments. And then you can basically weight those. So you can say that I want, if you're using a 0 to 10 weighting scale, you can say that the last year's data would be weighted a little heavier than 2 years ago, and so on. But you would basically be using a weighted average of multiple years to come up with what your labor, equipment, and material unit costs would be. And that can be copied back to your main performance guideline. And that's basically available out of the box. Okay, so I'll look a little bit at the different sources of planning work. Okay, so the first thing we looked at was inventory-based planning. So really the idea behind that is that I know what quantity of each asset I will be maintaining. In my admin unit, I have 100 miles of road, I have 500 culverts, I have 25 bridges. So if there are certain activities that you can basically apply a quantity standard to that inventory to derive how much work is going to be done, this window can be used for that. And really, what we have here is that you can see what quantity of each of these assets you have or maintainable elements, and you can apply by activity what the quantity standard is to actually derive that quantity of work. So if you had something as simple as a mowing, based on the how many hectares or acres you have, if you're going to be mowing these 3 or 4 times a year, you can apply a quantity standard of 3. If you have 500 culverts and you need to inspect all of them once a year, you can apply a quantity standard of 1. So for certain activities where you have a fairly predictable quantity standard that you can apply, this would be a good way to derive that. And the good thing about the different sources, you don't have to basically derive all your plan items from one source. You can mix and match. In all of these, you can filter by activity type, come up with the plan items for that, and import just that data set into the plan. So we can bring in data from multiple different sources for our plans. Okay, we also have the desired level of service plan, which is basically a plan required to achieve a desired level of service for each maintainable element. So the idea is that if you have a maintainable element, whether it be your drainage, the cracking on your roads, you have a condition score for each of these based on your maintenance quality assessment program. So you would always know what condition that particular element is in. You know what inventory totals you're maintaining in your admin unit. You know how much it has cost you historically to get to that particular condition level. So based on models, you can then make a decision. I'm currently at a 4.5 condition for this element, but I want to be at a 5. Or I'm at a 3.8, and I'm okay with dropping this particular element down to a 3. So what the desired level of service plan allows you to do is by element to decide how you would like to change the level of service of each of those. So in this window, you can see here for each element, you have basically the actual cost. You have the current cost, you have the current level of service, and then based on a selected level of service, it will basically tell you how much you would need to spend to get to that higher or lower level of service. And then based on that, it would give you a breakdown of all the activities which influence that particular maintenance element and how the budgets would change and what quantity of work you would need to actually execute for that. Okay, we also have scenario analysis plans, and they are plans created by running scenario analysis, and there can be 2 ways you can run these. You can have a user-defined maintenance index value. So I want to pick a network score that I want to achieve, and basically you run the scenario analysis to find what budget would be needed to achieve that score. And then you can do the opposite, where you have an actual budget, and you want to distribute that and basically allocate that budget to get the maximum score. So based on my having $10 million, what's the highest score I can get? As opposed to I want to achieve a score of 90 out of 100, how much is it going to cost me? Okay, so in that window, This is the scenario analysis plan where we basically can constrain that scenario that we're running. So we can set a scope to say we're running it for a particular set of admin units, a particular set of functional classes. And we can also define how we're going to constrain that. So we can set what the objective is, whether we're going to be doing it by based on the budget or based on the score. Hold on. A little too fast. Okay, and in this case, we're basically putting in a constraint of a budget, and then we can go down and constrain each of the elements that are in that analysis as well. So when we run this, the results are first going to be by maintainable element. We will see what the level of service is and what based on the scenario, the target level of service would be, and how the budget between what we spent previously and what we will need to spend to go to that higher or lower score. And then last, the constraint results pane would actually break this down by activity. So we see all the activities which can influence each of those maintainable elements and what we would need to spend on each of these. Now, the key thing about scenario analysis is that it is a network level plan. So basically, we're not looking at specific culverts or specific roads. We're basically saying within an administrative unit, we need to spend so much money on all the roads within that functional class to get an overall score. Because really, we're trying to get a network level score as opposed to scores on individual elements. Okay, so we can also copy individual plan items. So you have the ability to pick any previous plan or any of your work accomplishments for a past year, copy these into your plan matrix, and then edit those to make them current. And that, again, goes with the ability to being able to mix and match. So for some things, I'm going to be doing exactly the same quantity of work on my, again, with something like mowing, I'm probably going to be doing the same quantity of work mowing this year as last year. So it makes sense to be able to filter on those types of activities and copy them into the current plan year instead of needing to go in and insert them one by one. Okay, we can also add things like our work needs from work requests which have come up from the public, and also items which have been observed out on the road. And these we can insert manually into the plan. Okay, so the plan is really created to reflect the annual quantity of work which needs to be performed, which you can then distribute to particular months to essentially set a schedule for when you're going to be doing that work. So so the process we really follow is we create the plan line items from various sources. We set the desired total work quantities that we're going to accomplish for the year. We then level the plan, which is we make a determination of when we're going to do actual activities. Now, for certain activities like snow plowing, you know these are going to be done in certain months. And then we have things like patching or overlays, which again, we can only do in certain months where there's no snow on the ground. So these, we basically have set periods in which we can actually perform them. So leveling them is fairly easy. But then there are other more flexible activities which we can essentially fit in when we actually have the FTEs to actually perform that work. Okay, we can then finally, after we have the plan level, approve plan items to allow for issuing of work from that plan. Okay, so this is a shot of the plan matrix window where we can put in the plan quantity of work for the fiscal year, and then we can also go in and distribute when we actually want that, what months we actually want that work performed in. Okay, so this is just an extension of the that matrix. We can add additional fields here, for instance, to show for a selected quantity of work or cost. We can show breakdowns of what the labor cost component will be of that, what the material cost, equipment cost, and so on could be. We also have the option of, for that quantity of work, just putting in what the contract amount would be, so that we can also monitor on our plans how much work is going to be contracted. Once we have the plan set up, we do have the option of looking at it graphically to see by FTEs or by cost what the distribution of that plan looks like over the course of the year. And then that last big bar, that is really the backlog, what has not been allocated to a specific month as yet. Okay, and there are various things you can do with your plan once you have it set up. So for instance, in this window, I just set up this to be able to look at for a selected plan and fiscal year, for each of the months, what quantity of work is going to be performed. So this is just another view of the plan matrix to give a look ahead of the actual quantities of work to be performed each month, as opposed to what the plan matrix shows, which is how many FTEs are going to be allocated, or how many man hours will be worked in each month. Okay. Okay, so executing the plan. So we execute the plan by issuing work orders, either from the issue work order from plan window, or we can, as we issue work orders on an ad hoc basis, if we go to the work orders window and issue a work order, it will also track against the quantities that you have in the plan. We can, once you have those work orders scheduled, you can, issued, you can schedule them to set the specific dates on which you're going to be performing that work. As that work is reported, we will track what remaining quantities of work are left on the plan, and we have the option of adjusting the plan to reflect the actual performance of work over the course of the year. Okay, so this is a view of the issue work orders from plan window. So at the very top, you basically have a listing of the plan items. So based on the selected plan and the month that you select, it will give you a breakdown of the activities to be performed. If there are any work locations associated with these, what is the total quantity of work to be performed, how much is actually ongoing on work orders right now, and what basically has been completed to date. So it allows you to keep an eye on what you have in progress so far and what is left to be done for the particular month. And you can basically take each of these plan items and create work orders from them, and also set the work locations as well. Okay, so once I have issued work orders from my plan, I can go into my day cards window, open my scheduling tool, and basically schedule how long I want each of these work orders to last, and on what dates I'm actually going to be performing that work. So you can basically issue out, pretty early in the month, issue out the work orders which are on your plan. You can assign them temporarily, for instance, to a plan crew, and basically schedule when during the month you want each of those activities to take place. And that basically would allow you to report on your work schedule. Okay, so tracking the plan, another key step. So the annual plan needs to be monitored to ensure that it is on track and your work backlog and budgets are being managed appropriately. And that is really done at two levels. As you issue new work, you should have an eye on, so basically if I have an activity such as bridge maintenance, I not only want to issue out if I have 200 units of that work to be done, I want to keep an eye on how much I have already issued for the month, and and also based on my other activities, where I am relative to my budgets. So you also want to keep track of these via reporting as the work is being completed. So this is an example of a report from Indiana. So here they're looking at per month and for the period to date, which is the year to date, per month and year to date. So they're looking at what was on the plan, and in this case there was nothing planned, but you can see they actually performed some of that work for the particular month. So you can see also that for the year to date, they have a certain number of units performed versus the total which is planned for the year. So you can see what percentage of that work has been done to date. Okay, so the next section is on extending the plan, and that's really some of the enhancements we have in the works. Okay, so one of the first things, and this one came out of Ohio, is the ability to plan work at a specific location level. So right now you can put in an asset, a specific inventory asset on a plan item. We will have the ability to go down to the specific route and location. That will open up other things, such as the ability to show that the plan on a map, and also the ability to have possibly multiple locations per plan item. The long-term goal, of course, would be to start from the map and basically be able to create your plan directly on the map. The next one is the ability to group several plan items or activities by a project number or contract number, and that would allow you to plan at the program level and also to tie plan items to an in-house project or contract, and that would make for easier reporting. Okay. Next one is the ability to override your performance guideline, labor, equipment, and material, and total unit costs. So basically to drill in and say, I don't want to use the performance guideline for this, but I have specific rental rates. I may have the material already available, so I can override and use these line item specific costs and make it more of a bill of quantities. We also saw basically having better tie-in to scheduling, your work schedules. And as we saw with the mobile work manager, having that ability to have that to-do list of your planned activities on your mobile device so that you can quickly issue the work orders from that. Okay, the other things we have, of course, we have ongoing development of our APIs. So basically having REST API access to the planning table so that we can use external systems also to edit the plan. And that would be creating new items, reading them, updating them, and deleting those items. And then the maintenance analysis, one of the requirements of MAP 21 is actually being able to develop risk-based asset management plans at the specific asset level. So we will be looking at these, and I'll be working with our, looking to see Alex over there, Antonia. We'll be working on that shortly. Okay, so the next section is the Agile Assets Summit. We'll be looking at the dashboards and how they can tie in with the actual planning. So the Summit Dashboard Toolset is a new software as a service or SaaS offering. As mentioned by Michael, it's actually compatible with 6.9 and up. And it's really designed to give your agency managers, your district managers, a one-stop shop where they can look at the data, look at how the assets are being managed, and also drill down where they see particular issues or particular trends in the data. And it's really designed to get your performance metrics into the hands of the users who need that data. So some of the dashboards that can be used for planning would be plan versus actual, whether they're on work quantities, on labor hours, on total costs or unit costs, whether you want to track accomplishments, and also being able to drill down to that. So I'll just jump across to the software and do a demo since we have a little time. I do have slides on what those screenshots are, so you will be able to use the presentation to look at those. Okay, so this is I guess the prototype of the Summit tool. Yes? Oh, sorry. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is a prototype of the Summit tool. So you can see in here all the dashboards which have been shared with you as a user. Let me just make this a little bigger. So I can see, and also you as a user will be able to create your own dashboards which would show up under your documents. But on any of these, you have the ability to, if you have the rights to edit them, to delete them. But as you create new items, you'll also be able to share them with other users. So for instance, if we're looking at plan versus actual work, uh-oh, this went to sleep on me. Okay. All right, so you'll be able to log into the dashboard tool, select what dashboard you want to see. So in this case, we're looking at a plan versus actual unit costs map. We can look at it for the entire fiscal year. And these two views are going to be linked. So in the top view, we're looking at plan versus actual unit costs. In the bottom view, we're looking at plan versus actual hours. Over here, we have some interactive filters where we can see by admin unit or by activity. And basically, these are sized according to what portion of the data is affected. We can see how many rows of data we're dealing with. So if, for instance, if I looked over here and I saw fog or chip seal, I can click on that activity and it's going to update to reflect just that, that activity. I can see there are 2 admin units in here. I can click that I'm only interested in this one, 310. And as I click on these to drill down into my data, the filters are going to be appearing over here. If I see a trend in the data, like here, that I want to look at a little closer, I can draw a box around it, and that's going to add a filter by the date range. And in each case, as I add the filters, my data set, you can see now I'm down to 4 rows of data, and I'm basically drilling down, but I can still see the specific work order which I am dealing with. I can then go to the table over here to see the data in more detail. And of course, I can click on this export CSV to export the data if I want to use it offline. Okay. All right, so a couple of other reports that we have available. We have cost exceptions by work order. And what this is actually showing is some of the, so that we're looking at 2 different ones. This one is where we have the planned unit costs exceeding the actual unit costs. And in this case, we have the actual unit costs exceeding the planned unit costs. So it's basically showing you the 10 worst offenders in each one. And again, I can use either drop downs to filter those. So I can filter by activity. I can also come up here and type, for instance, winter patrol, right? Or, well, let's use hand patching. So I can start typing, and it's going to give me everything in the data which corresponds to that. I can add that filter. I can also filter by my team, my admin unit. I can also use these circular filters where I pick just the district or so on that I'm interested in. So there are many different ways in getting to the data. And again, down here, we will see the grid will update to reflect the data, just the data which is being filtered down. Okay, so let me see if I can. Okay, we have activity comparison. Okay, see, just before this presentation, they went in and changed all the names of the reports. So. Okay, so for this one, we're looking at the average unit cost by crew. And it probably makes a little bit more sense if you're looking at a specific activity. So again, we can look at the activities we have here. Okay, so winter patrol. So let's type in. Okay, let's do it over here. So we put on winter patrol, and we can see, based on the statewide average, we can see which crews are spending more or less than that statewide average. So if we want to look at which of these and drill down and see why they're actually spending that, we can select just those, and the data will again be filtered to reflect just those, the work orders coming from those crews. We also have, in this case, a map view, which is basically showing a heat map in this case. And what that is doing is just color-coded to show the ones which are red would be the ones which are much higher. The ones which are tending to green would be close to your state average, and the ones which are yellow would be under. So there are different things you can do, but the idea being that you can have your graphs, your maps, and your data grids all available to basically show your data in different ways. You also have the ability to set up many different visualizations. So just different ways of looking at your data. Let me see if I can find one here. Okay, let me go back to my first one, plan versus actual. Okay, so if I look at my charts here, so I have, for instance, my activity names, and I can look at that in different ways. I have the ability to move between the different graphing methods. So for instance, I can look at this by activity name and do a group by month, for instance, and that would show me my breakouts. So really the idea is to have a tool which not only lets you look at your data, but basically drill down, see why you're seeing certain trends in that report, and basically have an interactive dashboard which allows your users who are perhaps interested mostly in what the overall trend is, whether you're meeting your metrics, but when they actually see something which looks out of place, having the ability to basically go in and see what the underlying cause is. Okay, so I think I'll end here so we can take any questions that you have. Okay. Yes?
Any discussion about adding road classification to the performance guidelines window?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the cost to do some kind of patching on the interstate
Mm-hmm.
is much higher than a secondary road.
Okay.
And we've had a lot of folks in our field units request that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we did do something like that in Indiana, but in their case, they actually had two separate activities. Yeah. I mean, it certainly is a possibility. As long as we can make each of those records unique in some way. In this case, it would be an index, changing the index to activity. It's a ton of code. Yeah.
Talk about it fast. I was just
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, and I mean, we can certainly, I guess at the activity level, we do have the ability to manage it at the activity level where we have separate activities for each of those classes. And we basically, they were managing basically multi-lane and single lane routes differently. Yes.
Would you be able to combine, in this platform, combined work functions? So say if I wanted to look at my vegetation management costs, I had multiple work functions that all summed up into a vegetation management cost for a county. Is there a way to combine work functions in this?
In the summit or in the planning tool?
In some.
Oh, so basically you're looking at having a higher level like a reporting code? Yeah. Yes, and basically there are different ways of getting in. I mean, you can roll the data up anywhere, based on any field. It is flexible enough to do that. So whether it's a planning category or in that case, if you have a vegetation activity and there are different sub-activities under it, you can also do it that way.
Okay, time for one more question. Thank you very much, Derek.
Okay, thank you very much.